The next sentence deals with the finalized date, and that's important here. In the old contract, we never really knew when the contract was finalized. Under the old contract, it had a provision in there that said the finalized date is the date the last party signed or initialed, something along those lines, but there was not a firm date on the contract itself. So if you look at the last page of the new contract on page 11, you'll see there is a block down at the bottom, finalized date. Now, in training the real estate agents on how that's completed, we think about it this way. The offer comes from the buyer, then the seller responds, and it may go back to the buyer, and then the seller responds, and back and forth and negotiate. There's initials and that sort of thing. The last real estate agent who says, okay, done deal, we accept your final offer, that's the finalized date. And that's the realtor's responsibility to put that down there on that date. That lets us know that that's when the clock starts ticking, when we have a finalized date, because a lot of the dates, times within this contract say so many days from the finalized date. So it's important we know a finalized date. One of the things about this contract is we've got a finalized date, which is a key thing I want to talk about. There's a finalized date in the contract now, and that means that's the day the clock starts. Okay, that's the date it starts on inspections, that's the date it starts on everything. Now, because of TRID, the borrower, the buyer, has a certain amount of time to receive documents. You know, they count those 3 days and not the weekends and all that good stuff. And so what we've added in here is that if the lender, due to the fault of the lender, doesn't have the paperwork done, then the closing date can be extended up to 7 days automatically, as opposed to having to go back and forth on that, because we thought that that's not the buyer's fault, that's the lender's fault. They're not getting their stuff together. So, you know, we wanted to give that option. Say, seller, don't give them 7 days to take care of it. Or if you want to give them more, give them more. That's fine. But I guess my point was is that the agent needs to make sure that their client is moving toward that closing date at his own time. And to do that, to know that you're on time, you've got to know when the finalization date is. And finalization date is at the back of the contract, the last page. I want to talk about how this works logistically. Let's think it through, because in the past, we've always said the date of the contract. Right. You know, date of the contract would be at the top, date. And people would go, but then there'd be a signature line down at the bottom that may be 10 days later than that. What date, where's the start date? We never knew. And there may be some initials over on the side that had a initial
Wait a
date.
minute, Kelly, I thought we had a finalized date on the last contract as well.
Yeah.
It was, the way it was written though.
It was on the back.
Yeah. The way it was written, date on which last party signed or initialed acceptance of final offer. Okay?
Okay.
And it was a finalization date. What we're doing here, but the finalization date was never calculated or referenced in the body of the contract as being the start date. The last page has got an agent's signature and date, okay?
Okay.
You see the difference? The other one doesn't have a signature. We don't know who put finalization date on there.
Okay.
Now here's logistically thinking the way it works. You know, you get counter offers back and forth. That last one, say, okay, we're done. We're at the very end. Whatever agent received that last offer that was accepted is the one responsible for putting finalization date. Now the contract's finalized. Typically, it's going to be the seller, you know, because the buyer's going to respond back and the seller says, okay, I'll do that. But it may not be. It may be the buyer. But whatever agent does that puts that finalization date, and that's the day the clock starts with regard to inspections. Because you've got to have a start date, you've got to have an end date. Right. That's where we go to time is of the essence in the contract. Later on in there, you'll find time is of the essence. And time is of the essence simply means it's not a reasonable time if you're not over it. It means if 3 days means 3 days. You know, it describes 3 days, 3 calendar days, right. Or 7 calendar days, whatever it may be. There's no guessing. We're trying to keep that out of the guessing part of it, because a lot of times when you don't have time is of the essence under contract law, you have a reasonable time to take care of it. And that was always causing a problem, because what is reasonable with regard to financing? What is reasonable with regard to inspections? What are those dates, especially when a seller is looking at another backup contract potentially, or looking at competing offers coming in? They need a drop dead date, and they need to know when they can do it.